Hope you're all having a great Tuesday morning here, heading into round 14 of NRL Fantasy, and we just want to focus this video on the round 14 trade targets and potential options that you can have in your side, and obviously just having a look at, all the teams at the moment, how many buys they have remaining, and, obviously pretty important to see that if, a few teams here have gotten through 2 of their 3 buys, and some have that buy this week, to make it down to the 1 left as well. And others there have a terrific buy schedule from here on in, considering, we're obviously focusing solely on round 13 and 14 there. And now that a lot of those teams have had a buy in 13, we can now focus on those players from those teams as well. So let's take a look at the Dragons here, and they do have 2 buys remaining. So they were very much a focus for us heading into round 13 and 14, considering we had, the guys like Jack DeBellin and Bird really being ready and available for those 2 big matchups there. And obviously Bird didn't score as well as we hoped, but that was our planning. And now that they actually have a buy in 16 and 20, they have 2 remaining. It does become a little bit of an issue as to how you select any kind of Dragons player heading into this week. So if you are looking at potentially owning a Jack Bird or a Jack DeBellin, these type of guys, I think it's probably worth just staying away from them now. You wanted them for round 13, and now it's just a little bit hard with 2 of their next 7 games they're going to be missing. So, from after round 20, they have no buys remaining, and that could be a good time to pick any of those guns up. The only option I see at the moment in the Dragon side is Jacob Little, and if he gets that opportunity for bigger minutes, it's going to be hard to find out if Hunt backs up and plays. He should be able to get close to that 80 minutes out. Does Little continue with that, big minutes that he got 73 on the weekend? I'd say it'd probably be a little bit less than that. It might be around that 60 or 65. On a normal basis, he did look very gassed, and he was just such a dominant player in that game that they wanted to keep him on there as their best chance of coming back. But with Sullivan moving back to the bench then, does he take a few more minutes off Little? So definitely someone that Scoop and I will discuss in tomorrow's video, but he at that cheaper price, if he can get that 65 minutes or so, he should be able to score pretty close to a 40 odd to a 50 average, because he has these games in him where he gets a 60, 70, 80. He then has some lower ones like the week previous where he got the 34 in the 50 odd minutes. But if he gets anywhere over 60 minutes, I think he's definitely going to be an option for a few sides there. We go to the Eagles next, and obviously them having their bye this week, very much a team that we don't want to be focusing on too much. But from round 15, there are going to be a few guys that you might want to look at. Garrick is one of those guys potentially, but I think the main one is Samuela Fainu. So with him playing pretty well on the weekend, I think there is a little bit of a chance that he does keep the spot longer term over Kelma Tuolangi. So if he shows in round 15 and 16 that he can really do a job for you, I think he's definitely going to be an option anyway, just to cover that round 16 buy round with him being a mid at this point. So you'll be able to slot him in that spot, especially when a lot of us have Tarpany, Horsburgh, Tohu Harris, Jack DeBellin, all those type of players. It's going to be very hard to cover round 16. So Samuela Fainu, who's obviously over that 220k now, has made a little bit with that good score on the weekend. He could definitely be a guy to make some cash, and obviously cover sort of round 16 and 17 would be the nice goal. And then I think Kelma Tuolangi is going to be very close to returning in that. So, if in round 15 he comes out and does well, he's going to get us a good score. He's going to get us some good cash, and then he may end up holding that spot as well. Even with Ben Trbojevic potentially coming back somewhere closer to round 18 as well. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the Eagles team. Let's move to the Panthers, and I see 4 options at this point, and one of them is Edwards. So in that wing fullback position, a little bit unfortunate because a lot of us have traded pretty hard there over the last few weeks, and you might see if you did hold on to Joey Manu, you potentially have Billy Smith. You then picked up Ponga. You might have Drinkwater, Garrick, in that bottom 3, and then you've got Bird and Lemuelu, like my situation. You've then got Buller as well. So there's a lot of guys on your bench as well as your starting side. So it might be very difficult to get a Dylan Edwards, but if one of those guys gets suspended or injured, I think he's to play this week because he's going to be close to that best scorer, I think, in the wing fullback position. If, example for me, if Teddy doesn't get named to back up after the Origin game, I think Edwards was going to be a guy that I will look to target. So that's something to keep in mind there. You got Hosking and Sorensen. Both guys that, Hosking, especially someone that a bunch of us have traded out. And even last week, a bunch of people used him because he didn't play in 13 to go to someone else. I think he's still going to score pretty well in this one. So keep an eye on that. It doesn't look like he's going to be that 80-minute guy, but there will be weeks in this bye period. It could be this week, could be 16, where he does play the full 80 and gets you a good score. So he's definitely an option with Sorensen as well. And then, with him just showing the absolute dominance there. Does he keep that spot? Does Hoskin keep the other spot and Liam Martin get kicked out and he just plays through the middle or something like that? And then a little bit of time on the edges? I don't know. But definitely a risk for those two. But over the Origin bye period, with Liam Martin being out through that, I just don't see it affecting too much. And then you can go from there and make that decision. Fisher Harris is another one to potentially select in your sides as well. Coming off a really low score, having the week off is going to do wonders for his knee. And he's definitely a guy that you could look to pick up either this week in round 14 if you need, or potentially in 15 ready for round 16 there. They have one bye remaining, which is great news, just in 19. So just the one there. If you're looking at the Roosters now, so there's another 4 guys in this one. So you look at the Panthers, Roosters, and the Storm. They all don't have any buys all the way through until 19, and they only have one remaining, which is very helpful. So the Roosters, Joe Manu, someone you want to look at. You've obviously got Angus Crichton, potentially Sitili Tupouniua. These types of guys that are losing cash at the moment could be an option at some point. I've got Billy Smith just in there as well. Obviously a bit of an awkward mid-range price, but if he comes out and plays better, and should play better than what he did the game before last weekend. So, he's an option. And then, obviously, Jake Turpin is a big one. With Smith being out for probably at least another month, you'd say that he gets 14, 15, 16, 17, which is exactly what you need him for. And, especially me being a Robson owner, if you compare him or pair them together, that is obviously helpful because Turpin can play in 15. They will both be there for 16, which kind of hurts. You just play Robson, obviously. But, for him to cover that round 15 game is going to be very important there. So he's someone that I have on my radar either this week or next week, just to bring him in straight in round 15 could be an option for myself as well, considering he shouldn't go up too much in cash this week. Okay, that's the Roosters. They have one bye remaining in round 19. The Titans there, they have their last bye in round 16. So it is very difficult to bring any of their players in right now in 14. And I really only think Tanner Boyd at this point is a potential purchase, an option anyway, considering he covers that hooking position in round 15 for you. And then he obviously covers halfback as well. But very similar to that of someone like Damien Cook, who is out in 16. The only difference there is he plays one more game than what Damien Cook does, unless he plays Origin. Sorry. But likely at this point that he is not in that Origin frame. Do you want Cook at a similar price, a little bit more expensive than Tanner Boyd? So that's probably the call right there. He plays one less game but has more upside, I would say, than what Tanner does, even though he does plenty of kick meters and everything else there. Okay, so that's the Titans. Fafita, probably one I'd want to look at maybe in 17, but more likely to be in like round 20 or 21. I think Fafita's going to play big minutes in Origin and won't back up to his full capacity, I would say. You go to the Sharkies next, and guys like Britton Nakora, Mulatalo, and then Jesse Ramian are all potential options. The Sharkies have the one bye left in round 17, so they get round 16 and 19, the big Origin weeks there, which is going to be super important for you, and being able to select the correct side here. So obviously for round 14 is going to be important, and 16, those next two. The bye in 17 isn't super, it isn't a massive issue. I don't think. You've got Sharkies, Tigers, and Dogs. It's probably likely going to have a mixture of 3 to 5, I'd say. We're going to speak about the Tigers guys and also the Dogs, but there's not a hell of a lot of options in the Tigers. You're probably going to select one of either Bateman or IPAP. In the Dogs, you might have one of Edwards, a Preston, something like that. And then in these Sharkies, probably unlikely that you select any. So if you had one of each of those, that's going to be completely fine heading into round 17. So all three of those teams, really important squads to have a look at if you can find someone that has a decent amount of value. And for those Sharkies, Nakora is obviously at kind of tip-top peak price, but he's one of the best edges at the moment. Mulatalo scoring solidly for the wing fullbacks, and then Ramian is a little bit of an underpriced, always kind of a borderline kind of gun in the center position. So have a look at those three, considering they only have one bye left and they play both major buys. Okay, Tigers. We mentioned Bateman, IPAP. Both those guys, obviously Bateman in high-scoring games is more likely to get tries at this point. IPAP was one of those guys for the Eels that if it was a higher-scoring game, he could score a try and get his points that way if the base was down. But at the moment, he's not getting those opportunities when that happens. So Bateman's the guy if you think there's going to be some more higher-scoring games, and IPAP if it's a little bit more of a push comes to shove, back and forth type of game, he's going to get that 50 odd. I'm just not super convinced with him and his scoring at the moment. He had that one good score of 60 odd and everyone thought he was back and traded him back in. And then he just, they scored so many points last game and it wasn't to be. So I think you can wait on IPAP if you want. They have that 1 bye left as well. Bateman, someone you could select this week as well, because he got a good score last week and his break even is a little bit lower than that of IPAP. Keep that in mind on those two. Raiders, guys. The only guys I would select right now is either Tarpany, if he continues holding this 13 spot. I think he's a little bit more undervalued at the moment. And then Horsburgh. They're both a similar price. Hors just a little bit more expensive. But I think Taps, if he can get that 13 roll and get big minutes over this period, this is when he went on absolute tear last year. So keep that in mind, that he has that in on runs on the board in terms of good scores last year for that one there. Let's go to the Storm now, and that other team that has that terrific bye schedule with just that 1 bye left in 19. So you really get them for a strong 5 games here, and then just missing round 19. So if you can work around that, then awesome. The options in that, Eli Katoa is obviously one that we need to look at. The AC joint injury sounds like it's not as important or an issue as it is for some middle forwards. So we saw with Payne Haas last year with that AC joint injury, what happened to him. It's obviously not ideal, but the bye came at a perfect time for him and the Storm. So, great news for Ellie in that sense, and he has lost a decent amount of cash and kind of came into his own last game, which is good. Nas coming through an injury as well. That week off for them is going to be great, and his ribs obviously, but still a little bit away, I think, in terms of a potential buy. Needs to go down a bit more in price so that the risk versus reward is there in that one. And then Nick Meaney's an interesting one as well. Obviously, one of the better wing fullbacks at the moment, but I would be selecting Edwards over Meaney. Obviously, a little bit more expensive, but scores better also. So, I think Meaney's not a keeper in that sense. You go to the Knights now, and considering that they're bye this week, the only guy I would be looking at is Ponga. At the moment, if you are holding someone like a Crossland, then that's completely fine as well. Anyone, like Leoro in Storm is completely fine to hold as well. Knights, Ponga would be the only guy I'd be looking at in round 15. And if he's depending how well Walsh goes as well, we'll decide if we look at Ponga any further at that cheap price. Dolphins, there's a couple of guys I got question marks on. Anthony Milford, very cheap. Can he keep his spot? Can he continue to be the dominant half? And can he continue to play well like he did on the weekend? There's a lot of ifs and buts, and that's probably going to push you away from the MILF there, especially when the Oluwapu and stuff like that. Actually, I forgot to put Ola in the Dogs one as well, which is fun. We got Oluwapu. Cool. So Dolphins there. Milford, Lemuelu, obviously, they're pretty close to that gun keeper. And you're one of the top sort of 4 in that centres, which is great. And he has 2 buys left, but 1 in the origin period. And then Asako has been really, really killing it. So, definitely someone else that you could look at this point as well. I go to the Warriors now, and they have 2 buys remaining as well. 1 in 16 there, and then 1 a little bit later in 22. So both of those guys just out of the buy period, they have their last buy, which could be a little bit annoying, but also if they're not an out-and-out keeper, it's something to note that they will get you through the buy period easily, and then you can trade them out. But guys that likely going to be keeper long term is Torkel Harris and then Sean Johnson. So there's still going to be options for sure with 1 buy in this 7 games there. And then you've got Chancellor Kluxar. You could obviously pick up if you like. He did have his best ever fantasy game on the weekend, so I'm glad I was a part of that. Like the people that own Sorensen, they'll be glad they were part of that one for sure. But he's definitely an option with a lower break even if you want. So up to you. Bulldogs. So you spoke about Oluwapu there, and he's someone that is definitely cheap enough at the moment. And if you're looking for a half in round 16, he's definitely a cheap guy that you could have as a playing player. And he should be able to score you somewhere around that 30 mark. And if he can, start to build up a little bit of his attacking skills in the NRL, that'll be great as well. A few people looking at Ockenbaugh, so he's an interesting one. As if he gets, if he was to get the mid duel, or if he just keeps the wing fullback, we will find out on this one because he's coming off the bench, playing through that middle. So I'm not sure if they're going to change him there because a lot of time they need to be named in that starting side. So there's a little bit of conjecture on that, and we'll see what happens in that one there. Harrison Edwards obviously coming off his 30 odd and was a buy in round 12 for a lot of people. He still is an option now, and he has a better buy schedule than he once did coming into round 13. So he did go up a decent amount in cash, but he didn't go out of reach. If he got a 50 or 60, it would have been very hard, but he's definitely an option as well. And then Preston, a very clear hold, or coming off a 67, is going to have a lower break even and could make you a little bit of money and do great for you all the way through until their buy. in round 23. So you could do that if you liked, and then move him on then. Eels, so obviously potential options. Hopgood, Wiremu Greg is doing great. You've got Brown, Moses, who are all been solid. Not too much to say. On the Eels, obviously, once they get through this bye in 14, you've got 15, 16, 17, which is going to be great. And then they have their bye in 18, which, they're the only team with a bye, so not an issue at all. So really, once they get through 14, becomes a much easier schedule for them. And then they have a bye in the last round, in round 27, which, you can make that final trade if you needed to then, if you had one left. Cowboys, I only really see Drinky as an option. We probably see Taumalolo come back. I think Lucy Leilua, we need to wait on him a little bit. He's still not scoring well enough to even look at him. And then guys like Lukey are a hold at this point, and Robson. I wouldn't really look to buy Robson now, even after a 71, but that's that. And the last two guys, obviously Broncos and Rabbitohs. So, Eels, Cowboys, Broncos, Rabbitohs all have 3 buys remaining. So I find it very difficult to trade in. Obviously, Eels, you're not going to trade in this week, so they'll have 2 after this, but any of the Cowboys, Broncos, and Rabbitohs from here on, you would trade them in for 13 because they play 13, 14, 15, apart from the Cowboys in 15. But then they have a lot of buys. So Broncos are 16 and 19, and then a later one. Rabbitohs are 16, 20, and then one of the second last one, I think they are. So I don't see any of those guys from any of those teams as buys. You have a couple of bunch of Origin players away, so you can hold on to any of them, obviously. But then any of their replacements, the Broncos, they had their one game in 13, but they have a bye in 16 and 19 when Origin's on, so they're not going to play again unless they're backing, players don't back up. So that's all you really need to know on the Broncos front. And then the Rabbitohs, really, it's a sell for like Host and these type of players. I wouldn't be buying Totola anymore. Jaime Sele, a hold until you want to trade him. And that's where we're at. So that's around 14 purchases, the options that you could bring into your side. I hope that really helps, and obviously we're going to go through all of them in more detail tomorrow with Scoop and get his opinion, and we'll discuss that as well. So I wish you all the best of luck for team lists tonight. This is actually one of the more crazy team lists because we see a bunch of different teams not name their full squads, or they put Cleary will go in 20th man or something like that. So I will actually be a little bit late, unfortunately, with my team list analysis tonight. Probably about the 6 o'clock mark, I'd say it'll be up compared to 5. Probably a bit later, actually 6:30 compared to like 5. By the time it exports and everything like that, I'll be driving home back up the coast just a little bit earlier this time, which means it'll be kind of be in crossing over. I leave about 3. It'll cross over when I usually do the video, so that's fine. It'll be a little bit later, but it'll be out there before. To give you as much time as you need to go through your teams. But good luck with that, guys, and I hope you all enjoy Origin tomorrow. I will see you before then.